하나, 둘. 하나, 둘, 둘, 하.
Hey, Zlata, congratulations on your marriage, first of all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Kim. Yes, we will receive official papers like in a couple of days from now.
Okay. Yeah, congratulations again. And I'm really sorry that you could not make it here today.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's such a pity. I would be so happy to see you and your colleagues in person.
Okay.
Hopefully next year.
Yeah, hopefully next year we can have another international conference and we can have you. Okay, just a moment. Yeah, we have 2 minutes to go. And Mr. Sitaramani, can you hear me? Okay, one more time. Ms. Sitaramani, can you hear me?
Oh, I don't need to show my face. I would rather have my PowerPoint up. That's, yeah.
So it's 2 o'clock, so we'll begin soon. Professor Kim, please. Okay, this is the destined time, so we'll begin the second session of the international conference. Good morning, Saudi Arabia, and good afternoon, Singapore, and also my greetings to ladies and gentlemen, my dear colleagues, and all the audiences on YouTube online. I am Kyung Jung, the Vice Head of HK+ National Strategies Research Project Agency for the National Research Foundation of Korea at the Center for International Area Studies of Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. It is my honor to take the role of chairman in this meaningful international conference. This conference is hosted by the Korea Environment Institute, Center for Environmental Information of North Korea, and HK+ Research Project Agency, and the ICT Fishery Resource Management Research Institute at CHONNAM National University. We co-hosted the international conference 4 times. On December 1st of 2020, that was the first international conference. And the second conference was on November 12th of 2021 and November 4th of 2022. The title of the 2020 conference was Seeking Supra-National Cooperation for the Sustainable Development of the Korean Peninsula. And the title of the conference in 2021, 2022, and 2023 is Border and Environment, Supranational Cooperation and Communication for Reaching Carbon Neutrality. Some of today's participants joined that conference too. Glad to see all of you again. And I would like to express my special thanks to Zlata Sergeyeva and Sitaramani and Melissa Rowe, who connected via Zoom despite the time gap and busy schedule. Thank you again. This year's title is Border and Environment, Supranational Cooperation and Communication for Reaching Carbon Neutrality 2023. We have 5 presenters and 5 discussants from 6 different countries today, and let me briefly introduce them one by one. And if you want to know them more precisely, you can find their resume in the profile book, which was distributed at the reception when you registered. Okay, the first presenter is Ms. Zlata Sergeyeva from King Abdullah Petroleum Studies and Research Center. And the second presenter is Naomi Hyunju Chi from Graduate School of Public Policy at Hokkaido University. And the third presenter is Sita Ramani from Energy Studies Institute of National University of Singapore. Ramani, are you online? Please show your face. Open the video, please. Hi, good to see you. Glad to meet you. Okay. And the fourth presenter is Chen Yi-chun from Chinese Culture University at the Department of Land Resources. And the last presenter is Melissa Yu-Sing Lo from Center for Nature-Based Climate Solutions at National University of Singapore. Are you there? Okay, glad to see you. I'm glad to meet you. Thank you. Okay, and we have 5 discussants. I will introduce them one by one briefly. The first discussant is Kim Do-hoon from Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Okay. The second discussant is Chung Sun-mi from Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. And next discussant is Sim Chang-seop from Korea Environment Institute. And next discussant is Professor Lee Sang-hyun from Chunbuk National University. And last but not least, our last discussant is Mr. Sakaguchi Hirohiko from Mainichi Newspaper of Japan. Okay, thank you all of you for your participation. And we have such various topics today, and I'm sure that it will give us a chance to think of the carbon neutrality and future cooperation of the global society for reaching carbon neutrality. Regarding the presentation order, Ms. Sarigeva would be the first, and after that, one by one, following the list at the profile book. I will give 22 minutes to each presenter for the presentation, and the discussants can have 10 minutes. We don't have designated discussant today, so you can freely express your opinion regarding the manuscript. And please be sure to keep time. I give you an allot when you have just 5 minutes to go. Okay, and after all the presentation, the discussants can take their part, and after that, I will give 5 minutes to each presenter to answer the question and comments of the discussants, and I'll wrap up the session. Okay? So let Mrs. Lata present first. I will give the mic to Mrs. Lata Sarigeva for the first presentation, please.
Thank you very much, dear Professor Jung, dear colleagues. It's a great honor for me to speak here today. So let me share my screen. Oh, I think you have disabled screen sharing. So probably if you can put my presentation on the screen.
Okay, I will share the screen. Yeah, please. Share the screen, please.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, it works.
Okay, perfect. So today I will start talking about how producer and consumer relations affect oil and gas industry and its perspectives to achieve carbon neutrality. And to start with this topic, I would like to show you a very interesting graph. It shows the deliveries of so-called carbon neutral LNG or liquefied natural gas, whose producers took care of its emissions. As you can see, it first appeared in the market in 2019. In 2020, even despite the pandemic, it was growing. In 2021, it seemed like a huge promising market with 34 cargoes being delivered. And a lot of analysts were talking about carbon neutral fuels becoming the future of the oil and gas industry. But what happened next? In 2022, you can see on this graph, only 4 cargoes were announced, and in 2023, even less. So my question to you, before we start talking about this topic, please keep this picture in mind, and together we'll try to answer how producer and consumer cooperation affected these dynamics. Because yes, we can partially say that, oh, it was crazy natural gas prices that took place starting from the second half of 2021. But during the course of the presentation, we will figure out whether it was the only factor or not. So let's talk about carbon neutral hydrocarbons in general. What is it? How did this concept was born? And why I believe it is important for both producers and consumers to keep in mind challenges associated with it. So, as I have told you, the idea of carbon neutral hydrocarbons appeared in 2019, and it was seen as a perfect middle ground between the needs of the exporters who were struggling with achieving their net zero targets, who were scared about the carbon pricing, different other carbon regulations, And as a result, the perspective of of the huge fall in their respective revenues. At the same time, carbon neutral hydrocarbons attended to the interests of the importers, who are also thinking about how to meet their net zero targets without disrupting their energy security, and how to support the generation from the renewable energy sources, which can be unstable due to the weather. So carbon neutral hydrocarbons, which are basically same hydrocarbons that we know, like same liquefied natural gas or same pipeline gas or same oil, LPG, diesel, but its emissions, the emissions of this product, were taken care of. As a result, it is claimed to be carbon neutral. However, as the market has been evolving over the years, it became clear that the market has several problems associated with the concept of carbon neutral hydrocarbons. First of all, there was no commonly accepted definition because there was lack of cooperation between the producing side and the consuming side. It's literally all the deliveries, it happened case by case. So as a result, producers managed different emissions for different elements of the value chain. Some looked only at the emissions from transportation phase. Some looked only at the upstream phase. Also, they managed different kinds of emissions. Some were paying attention only to CO2, less producers to CO2 equivalent. However, ways to achieve this carbon neutrality, they were the same because all the producers decided to procure or use carbon offsets from their own portfolio to offset the emissions. However, there is a bunch of other solutions we're going to talk about later, which can actually also help you achieve carbon neutrality without disrupting its credibility. So as a result of using different offsets, and very often the logic of the producers and consumers were to go for the cheapest option, the quality of offsets became questionable because there were a lot of scandals associated with the trust linked to these offsets, and also some of the offsets were outdated. And also during these deliveries, unfortunately, a lot of producers didn't think about the long-term decarbonization strategy of the company. They thought that delivering just one cargo will be enough to claim that they're moving towards their carbon goals. So speaking about all these problems, we can say that they can be united under one big umbrella problem: no global standards, because producers and consumers were in sort of isolated bubbles and they did not work together to develop those standards. There were two attempts to develop standards, like for example, by the international group of LNG importers, and also by some industry participants. However, it still has not become the obligatory or like widely accepted standard. Only one cargo was delivered using this standard. On this slide, you can see the bigger map of most popular sources of carbon offsets. And as you can see, most of them, despite the fact that over 60 deliveries of carbon neutral LNG happened by now, you can see that actually the sources of carbon offsets that the producers use to offset the emissions come from mostly same sources. And Indonesia is the most popular source of these offsets, which shows us that actually during the deliveries, producers do not really want to manage emissions at the point where emissions are generated, like for example, where the cargo is where the product is produced or where it will be consumed. Unfortunately, to the credibility of carbon neutral LNG or carbon neutral oil contributed the scandal that happened with one of the leading verifying companies called Verra. its CEO had to step down as a result of a series of investigations, what made the price of offsets crash at the beginning of 2023. And yes, perfect, offsets became more available in the market, in the voluntary markets. But at the same time, the issue of trust started taking the first place in the minds of consumers willing to procure these carbon neutral products. So my question, not my question, my judgment from this graph is that actually this is poor coordination between producers and consumers, which resulted in the lack of international standards and growing distrust in the new products. That's what resulted in the significant drop of announcements in 2 last years. However, I want to show you the continuation of the story. Actually, by looking at the database of different issuers of carbon certificates, like Vera, which I already mentioned, we have discovered that actually physical deliveries of carbon neutral LNG, they still take place. So on the last graph, you can see the announcements. So in 2022, there were made only 4 public announcements. However, there were 17 actual deliveries, at least those which were registered in different databases. So what we can see happening is that due to the lack of transparency in the market, producers started seeing this carbon neutral LNG as a threat to their PR strategy. However, since to a large extent for them, it's one of few solutions that they can actually afford to move towards carbon neutrality right now, especially in the environment of political instability and high prices, they chose to continue procuring these cargoes, but just not putting the announcements on their official websites. So if we look at the markets for this carbon neutral LNG, because carbon neutral oil, and it is still less popular, less than 10 deliveries of carbon neutral oil were made so far. You can see that for carbon neutral LNG, Asian countries are the leading destination. And actually South Korea, it imported 2 cargoes. Japan is the leader in this dimension because Japan imported almost the half of all deliveries that were done worldwide. So let's talk about the solutions. How can producers and consumers cooperate to make sure that they can still get reliable products like oil and gas, and at the same time move towards their carbon neutrality? So for decarbonization of the LNG value chain, one of the potential solutions that can help this market of carbon neutral LNG gain more trust is carbon capture, utilization, and storage. However, the problem associated with this solution is that very little information available, and especially information on the costs we can have nowadays. So before we start discussing the costs of CCS and the potential of its deployment in different countries, let's look at the distribution of emissions along the LNG value chain. So from this graph, you can see that most of emissions come actually from the combustion stage, basically final consumption. However, when we're thinking about where to deploy carbon capture, utilization, and storage solutions, unfortunately, the combustion stage is not very feasible for CCUS. Why so? Because in the case of oil, it would be the equivalent of putting carbon capture on every single car. With natural gas, it's also, when we're thinking about the final consumers, where in most of the cases, we're talking about not even dozens, but hundreds and thousands of final consumers, including households, industry, government. So it is really difficult at this stage when the costs are still pretty high of this technology. It is impossible to start decarbonizing individual consumers on the country level. Let's look at storage regasification. Unfortunately, to implement CCS at that stage also doesn't make much sense because, as you can see, it accounts for less than 1% of total emissions along the LNG value chain. So it is not the best place to start with implementing CCS solutions for this particular segment of LNG value chain. As for transportation, it sounds like a good place because you see the decarbonization of maritime industry is picking up the pace. However, the technologies like onboard carbon capture and storage solutions for vessels which ship LNG, they are still at the very early stage of their development. And for example, at the beginning of this year, I was at GasTech conference in Singapore, and I was talking to some of the shipyards. And for example, Hyundai, they are planning to, they hope to finalize the concept of this vessel and move to the production phase not earlier than 2028. So what it means that if the producers and consumers want to decarbonize their value chain right now, they have no appropriate solution for transportation which is ready, which they can procure today to start delivering these cargoes tomorrow. So what we're left with is to implement CCS at the exploration and production phases and liquefaction phases. Altogether, they account for most of emissions before the consumption stage. So they account for most of emissions situated at the producer side of emissions. So it is the largest feasible share of emissions to be captured as of now. It is relatively single source, and also producers already have most of the needed infrastructure for that. So that's why we decided, by analyzing CCS, we decided to focus on that element of the value chain. Unfortunately, for this study, we didn't have enough sources because, as you can see, globally, as of now, there are only 12 operational facilities, CCS facilities, related to the processing of natural gas. And only 3 out of them are related to liquefied natural gas. So yes, there are lots of conversations about CCS, but it still has a long way to go because even getting data for the analysis is very difficult because even those facilities that exist, it is really difficult to find open data. So what is the cost of this solution? So the global average cost of capturing CO2 stands at around $51 per ton of CO2. And the cost of storing CO2 globally is at around $13 per ton. So for this research, we took 2 approaches simultaneously. First, we looked at the costs for different LNG producers to implement CCS based on the carbon intensity of their LNG. And on the second step, which is approach number 2, we also decided to use country-specific factors, for example, electricity cost or labor cost or the availability of the land for large-scale CCS solutions to adjust these costs for country-specific, for particular countries. So here on this graph, you can see the intensity of emissions from the different producers. And as you can see, Algeria is the most emitting, is the highest in terms of carbon emissions. And Russia and Qatar are the lowest, are the producers with the lowest carbon footprint. However, as we understand right now, Russian LNG can be seen not very attractive due to geopolitical reasons to many customers. So that is why talking about implementing large-scale CCS in Russia for the benefit of the global community is a challenging topic right now. So let's look at the costs. If we look at the costs from the point of view of just emissions intensity, without taking into account the country-specific factors, we can see that the cheapest solutions will remain Russia and Qatar because of the carbon intensity of their LNG. And the United States and Australia also stand relatively close to them. However, if we add up regional factors, the cost curve changes a little bit because we can see that Australia, which was on the previous slide, you can see that Australia was the third in terms of the costs.
You have 5
But
minutes.
Thank you so much. Yes, but due to a lot of issues associated with labor costs, like all of you heard about the strikes happening at the LNG facilities, Australia actually becomes the most expensive place for implementing CCS solutions. Why this graph is important for us during this conference? Because judging by these prices, we can realize that if you want to continue getting carbon-free or carbon-neutral energy, which you're used to, such as, for example, carbon-neutral LNG or carbon-neutral oil, and you will have to cooperate with the producers of this fuel so that the producer can implement CCS on its site where it is feasible now. So this graph shows you actually what countries will be most attractive from the producer side to cooperate with to secure the supplies of low carbon energy. If we look at the price comparison between CCS and carbon offsets, you can see that the difference is drastic. Yes, CCS is a great solution, but as of now, it makes the costs of offsetting or dealing with emissions from 3 to 5 times higher than if you use just the offsets. How feasible it is in terms of prices? Well, you can see that the highest solution in 2023 for Australia, CCS plus offsets, would cost, if they had everything in place, it would cost approximately $55 per ton of LNG. So at the current price environment, actually that looks pretty feasible, even with such an expensive solution as CCS. So to conclude, the main problem in the nascent carbon neutral LNG and oil and diesel and LPG markets is the lack of cooperation between producers and consumers that led to issues related to standardization and the transparency of the market. Physical deliveries are still taking place, and they will continue taking place because right now it's a feasible solution that fits both sides. Second, because in such countries like Japan, for example, we already see some midterm and long-term contracts. And third, in several countries, the support for carbon neutral LNG is picking up. We also see that other fuels start taking this trend of becoming carbon neutral. However, if we're speaking about other technologies that can afford us to become carbon neutral without relying only on offsets, it is mostly reasonable to look at the CCS on the point of production. Right now, it is a costly solution, but hopefully, if producers and consumers cooperate in a way that producers highlight the interest in such products and are willing to commit with long-term contracts, producers will go that route, and sooner or later the costs will decline. And even now, this solution is still affordable, which gives us hope for the future. Thank you so much for your attention. That is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Mrs. Sarajevo, and thank you for keeping the time. I'm sorry that I cannot give you much time, but we can talk about that when we discuss the theme. And Ms. Sarajevo gave us very valuable insights regarding the possibility of cooperation between producers and consumers, and she pointed out why the supranational cooperation is really important in, well, saving the energy and solving the energy problems. Okay, the next presenter is Naomi Hyunju-chi from Hokkaido University, and the title of her presentation is Living in the Age of Anthropocene, Zero Carbon Hokkaido, and Local Initiative for SDGs in Hokkaido, Japan. Please.
Yes, thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me to this wonderful conference. I'm just waiting for the PowerPoint too. Yes, so thank you very much. Thank you to the staff for helping me out with the PowerPoint. So today, I've actually submitted a paper. Sorry, it was kind of late, but I have a paper in the proceedings. So I thought you would already have access to the paper itself. So I'm not going to repeat what I wrote, but I wanted to share with you a couple of the insights that from where I live in Hokkaido, and we'll try to keep time, and I will make sure that I will be within the 20 minutes. So next slide, please. Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. All right. Okay, thank you. All right, so just briefly, I've already been introduced, but I wanted to just let people know, just, you know, I think many conferences, you find a lot of academics doing the same thing, but I'm gonna give you my excuses first. I'm actually not, I don't work on environment itself, but my actual research area is on the gender issues and minorities issues in East Asia. But one of the key words that I work on is human security, and from that perspective, I work a little bit on sort of environmental issues and SDGs in Japan. So that's kind of where I come from. So my background is not natural sciences. I'm a social scientist, a political scientist by training. So if you could bear with me, and I hope that I will be able to share with you some of the insights that I have from the region that I live in. Okay, so today's content, I'm going to talk a little bit of climate change post-COVID, and I will briefly touch upon the Hokkaido government's zero carbon initiative. And I will also share with you, not all of them, but just a couple of examples of local government's initiatives on renewable energy. And then I will conclude with my, 2 pennies worth, so concluding thoughts. All right, so if you look at, most of the photos that I have here are in Japanese, but I will explain. The average rise in temperature in Hokkaido, oh, thank you so much, that's perfect, thank you, is, if you look at the data, it's about 1.5 degrees Celsius in about 100 years. That's, you know, we're warming up. And just to give you some sort of actual numbers, for instance, this summer in August, this is August 23rd, we recorded the highest temperature in Sapporo, which is a city in Hokkaido. So many of you probably know Sapporo from our beer, Sapporo beer, yeah. So we are on the northern side of Japan, and the average summer used to be about 25, 26. Now we recorded 36. And so you can see that we are getting hotter, even in Hokkaido. And if you look at some of the other sort of issues, such as so the effects of climate change include, first of all, health issues, health risks. So we've had our spike in in heat strokes, and if you look at the number, just while we had the hottest temperature in Sapporo that week, August 21 to 27, 935 people were rushed to the hospital because of heat stroke. And in Hokkaido, obviously, we have physical education in our schools, and children were not able to play outside or have PE outside. Why? Because it was way too hot, and these kids were getting heat stroke. So usually, they have 3 to 4 hours of activities outside. Now they do it in the hours have been decreased, and it's like 1 to 2 hours. And they try to make sure that they have the PEs and all the activities in the morning when it's a little bit cooler. So the schools had to readjust or adjust to this, high temperatures. And it's not just the elderly people that are being affected by heat stroke, young kids, because they don't, they're very active and they don't realize that their body heat is getting higher and higher. And so we had a series of massive heat stroke and people being rushed to the hospital. Also, we had a change in our ecosystem. Just to explain to you just a couple of things that I've noticed in the last few years. For example, we've had our share of avian flu. In the past, that wasn't a problem. It wasn't an issue in Hokkaido. But now, every year, we have to kill our chicken because of avian flu. Also, the catch. Yeah. If you look at the fish that is now being caught around Hokkaido is completely different than what we used to be able to fish, say, 20 years ago. We used to be able to fish mackerel, 꽁치 in Korean, yeah, samma desu ne. Also, we were salmon also is very big in Hokkaido, but because of the rise in the sea temperature, we are not able to catch these fish. They are going actually up north, further than Hokkaido, and so that's why it's difficult to catch these fish. And the fishery, of course, the fishing industry is a huge industry in Hokkaido, yet they're suffering because they're not able to catch the fish that they used to be able to catch. Yeah. Also, we have had a share of damages due to deers and bears. So, if you, even in Sapporo, Sapporo is a city of 2 million people, and we have bear sightings within the city because we are living closer and closer to the mountains, yeah? And so the bears come down to the city. The reason why the bears in general tend to be very scared. They're scared of human beings, so they usually don't come out to the city. But because they don't have any food in the mountain, right? They usually eat acorn, totori, yeah? Totori, the acorn, donguri desu ne. But there's a lack of acorns in the mountain. So where did they go? They come to the city because they can't find any food. And so in the city, they go through people's trash. But if you go to some of the other areas of Hokkaido, they attack the cattle farms. So they have huge damages in cattle farms. They eat the cow. Also the deers, right? The deers come out and they eat the grass that's for the cows. And so it's detrimental to the ecosystem. And we are now facing new threats because of climate change. And next, I want to just briefly talk about, so I've mentioned all the negative factors, but there are, and it depends on who you talk to, but there are some maybe positives or new potentials or possibilities. For instance, in Hokkaido, we were not able to grow rice before because it was too cold. So we're above that northern latitude where we can grow rice. But because of climate change and with the rise of temperature, we have one of the best rices in Japan right now. So for instance, we have this brand called Yume Pirika, which is one of the best. It's been awarded all these prestigious awards. We also have one of the best sake. Japanese sake is made from rice, yeah? And so we have one of the best sakes because we're able to grow rice. Also wine. Japan is not a wine producer, but because of climate change, we now can grow grapes for wine. And there's a little small town called Yoichi, which is about an hour away from Sapporo, and that's where we produce our wine, grapes for wine. And the wine that we produce in Yoichi is 12% of Japan's production of wine. So that's quite a bit. And the reason why we can have now Pinot Noir, so Pinot Noir is that red wine that I think everybody knows. It's very nice and tasty. But we weren't able to grow Pinot Noir because it was too cold. But now we can. And so all these sort of new, I don't want to say potentials, but there are sort of some merits of climate change, and some of our government officials and also our politicians are kind of playing up on that. Well, climate change, yes, it's bad, but it's bringing us some new potentials. That's kind of the discourse we have in society, which obviously can be a dangerous discussion. But anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know that this is sort of the case. Okay, the initiatives by the Hokkaido government itself. So Since the adoption of Paris Protocol in 2015, of course, all countries, including Japan, have implemented some sort of zero carbon initiative, right? Japan is the 5th largest emitter, so obviously, they really need to work on their emission, reducing the carbon dioxide emission. In October 2020, our former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, he announced that Japan will achieve zero carbon by 2050. And many laws were revised. The revised Act on the Promotion of Global Warming Countermeasures, they were updated, and the Act on the Promotion of Global Warming Countermeasures was adopted. And in 2000, the government itself declared the 2050 carbon neutral declaration and this was mentioned in the Prime Minister's policy speech on October 26, 2020. And since then, of course, our local government, our Hokkaido government, at the local level on March 2020, announced that its goal of virtually eliminating greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, and they will address the climate change issues from a long-term perspective. And in March 2021, they formulated the Hokkaido Global Warming Prevention Promotion Plan. And Hokkaido is very different than some of the other areas in Japan because we rely on agriculture and also fishing. And we have a lot of potential in terms of renewable energy and forest sinks. And so the government is now initiating plans to simultaneously promote decarbonization along with economic revitalization and also sustainable regional development. And we have put it into a package called Zero Carbon Hokkaido, and we're trying to aim for that for 2050. Now, in terms of the midterm goals, in addition to taking into account the measures, policies, and reduction targets set forth by the national government, the Hokkaido local government has also announced that its reduction target of greenhouse gas emission by 48% in 2030. That's our midterm target. Okay, next, I want to talk a little bit about our new energy resources, or renewable energy resources. So as I just explained, we do have abundance of new energy sources. Now, Hokkaido is rich in various energy sources, including solar, wind, biomass, geothermal, and coal. And it has, in our opinion, the greatest potential in Japan, especially for the utilization of this new energy. Now, many initiatives are being put forth for local production, for local consumption of energy, and many concepts have been raised in the wake of the feed-in tariff system. Now, let me just explain to you what some of the Hokkaido's potentials are. One is wind power generation. It's #1 in Japan. So onshore wind power accounts for 51% of the nation's total potential for introduction, and offshore wind power, including both land-based and floating wind power, accounts for about 29%. And next, let me just look at, wanted to go through the list. So I just explained to you wind power. Next is small and medium-sized hydropower generation. This is also #1 in Japan. So riverine hydropower accounts for about 10% of the nation's total potential. We also have geothermal power generation. It's #2 in Japan. And solar power generation, again, #1 in Japan. Solar power amounts to about 25% of the national total. Now, if you can see that, maybe it doesn't reach, the laser pointer doesn't reach, but the photo on the left-hand side, that's our wind power just along the coast of East Sea or Sea of Japan, whichever you want to prefer, whichever is your preference. The middle is the Chinetsu, so that's geothermal. And then on the right-hand side, that's our solar panel in the city of Tomakomai, which is about an hour-and-a-half away from Sapporo. Now, sorry, it's very difficult to see probably because the numbers are so small, but I just wanted to point out, for instance, in Japan, we have a different way of counting the years. So Reiwa Ninen, that's 3 years ago, so that's 2020. So sorry, the numbers are a little bit old, but by 2020, solar panel was 1.94 million kilowatt. The wind power is 590,000 kilowatt, and then just biomass also is 14,000, right? And so you can see the amount of the wattage of the solar power and wind power and biomass. They're especially those three have increased dramatically since year 2016. Now, next, just to show you some photos of our solar power and wind and also biomass. So solar powers, we have tons. So Hokkaido has we have our mountains and we have our rivers. Also, we have our plains as well. So there's an area, Tokachi area, which is right here in the map, right here on the left-hand side. So that area is very flat, and so that's where we have our solar panels. It's you can see the kilowattage, but 1,000 kilowattage in this area of Tomakomai, and also the greater Tomakomai is about 111,000 kilowattage. And next is wind power. Most of our wind powers are just along the, again, Sea of Japan or East Sea, whichever you want to call it. That's where we have most of our wind powers because the wind comes from the west. And so if you go to Soya Misaki is the northernmost part. That's the northern area where we have our wind power. It goes all the way down to Hakodate area. So all along that coast, right, of the East Sea or Sea of Japan, we have our wind power. And the amount implemented up till today is about 590,000 kilowattage. And lastly, biomass. There has been a lot of concentration and a lot of focus on biomass these days, simply because in Hokkaido we have our cattle farms, right? So biomass uses animal waste, and because we have our share of cattle farms and pig farms, so there is a lot of potential in using animal waste for biomass. And the cattle farms, of course, are in these areas, and that's where many of the biomass is being tried out in Hokkaido. And the amount implemented to this day is about 140,000 kilowattage. Okay. Lastly, I just wanted to, I've explained to you that we have a lot of potential, but that's just half of the story, of course. We still have a lot of challenges that we need to face. For instance, I just explained that there's a lot of potential for renewable energy, but that doesn't mean that it's actually making a profit, or actually it's not as stable as I make it out to be. We still have sort of instability of renewable energy. We still have challenges to transmitting the power. Like system capacity is not high, and so that's one of the challenges that we have. Even though we produce power, we can't transmit it. So if we can't transmit it, then it's pretty inefficient. In terms of wind power, there's a lot of focus on wind power and also biomass. But for wind power, we have so many issues with bird strike, because that's Hokkaido, as you know, we have a lot of migrating birds, right? And we have had problems time to time with bird strike, and we have tried different ways to see if we can improve the situation by painting it red, or trying to avoid the flying route of the birds, but we still have the share of problems with bird strike. Also, with the offshore wind power, there is a lot of hype about offshore wind power, but there is a lot of opposition from the fishing industry, and so we still need to figure out how to mitigate that. In terms of biomass, now we do have a lot of potential in biomass, because we have so many of our, we heavily rely on the cattle farms in Hokkaido, but it's still not very efficient and not very effective, because we still are lacking funding. Because as I understand, biomass, you take the biogas and then you can turn it into methane gas or methanol, and then you can use that for plastic and various things. So if we can get that up and running, and if we can stabilize it, of course that would be great in terms of renewable energy. But again, we're not at that stage yet. We're still in trying trial and error in terms of biomass. And then last thing I wanted to say, I'm just going to throw it out there. So Hokkaido has a lot of disadvantages, but we also have our own advantages. And that's why we are able to work. I mean, our local governments are trying to take very innovative and creative ways towards countering climate change. And it's not just about the environment. It's not about environmental issue itself only, but for instance, for Hokkaido, because we are one of the regions where we are rapidly depopulizing. The aging society is one of the situation in Hokkaido is one of the worst in Japan. So for various local cities and local towns, it's also part of their city planning as well, so to attract more people to their city. It's also to revitalize the local areas. So it's sort of a part and parcel, it's a package, right? Yes, we will work towards trying to improve our environment, but it's also part of our city planning and also revitalizing our local areas. I always have this question when I work on environmental issues, when we say SDGs. Now, the S stands for sustainable and D it stands for development. But the premise of SDGs is that we are going to grow, that we're going to continue to grow. But is that really what we need to do? Should we develop even more than we are developing now? We all think that capitalism or neoliberalism is the way forward, but maybe we can just stop and think, is that really the way we want to go? Because if that is the way to go, then obviously we have to come up with new technology to protect our environment. But there's also another option, is to slow down. Maybe if we slow down, then situation may improve a little bit more. There's a Japanese word, setsuyaku. It means to conserve, right? To use less, right? I think everybody does this, but we probably leave our computer on when we leave our office. We leave the lights on when we leave our office. But it's these small things, right, that we can do every day to conserve, to setsuyaku, to use a little bit less. And maybe that's also another alternative to what we're talking about today. So with that, I would like to end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ji. As we are living in the age of Anthropocene, we human beings are destroying all the things. So sometimes I think that sustainable development should be replaced with the word sustainable improvement. Instead of development, we can improve something. And Professor Ji pointed out the need of local planning and local vitalization by taking the examples of Hokkaido. And I really think about that. And our next presenter is Dr. Sita Ramani from Energy Studies Institute of National University of Singapore. Her title is Challenges of Renewable Energy Application in Rural Developing Country, Case of Solar Water Pumping System in Indonesia. Please, Dr. Dr. Ramani.
Yep, thank you. I'll share my screen. Okay. Yep. Everyone, I'm delighted to join with you virtually in this event, and thank you for the organizer for the invitation. I'm Sita, a research fellow at Energy Studies Institute at the National University of Singapore. ESI is a research center or think tank on energy policies, energy-related issues. Today, I'm going to share with you about challenge and renewable energy application in a rural developing country. The big topic of my research is about solar water pumping system in rural community in Indonesia. And today, I'm going to share a part of this research related to evaluation of post-construction project operational and management. This is the outline of my presentation. First, introduction, and then literature review methods and result discussion. Finally, the conclusion. Okay, first of all, rural water sector Indonesia. Indonesia is a developing country, and like other developing countries in the world, have inadequate access to basic drinking water. As this graph shows, in 2022, for about 50 million rural population in Indonesia did not have access to basic drinking water. Indonesia is an archipelago country with a population of 278 million people. And the rural area in Indonesia is, the rural population is 42% of this total population. So a lot of people live in rural area, and delivery service of many basic service in this rural area has its specific challenge, because Indonesia as an archipelago country across the region has different challenge of geographical situation, and also it is governed under 514 local government with different levels of capacity and resources. Distributed water system mostly use diesel powered pump and in rural area, while in urban area mostly it is governed by the local government using a centralized system. So distribute water system using diesel power pump is typically used in rural area where water utility is not available. Renewable energy technology is an interesting option for water supply in this situation. And first of all, a basic introduction about solar water pumping system. So this is could be an ideal alternative for remote village that lack of energy access and water supply. So it employs this solar PV to generate power, and then which used to like move this pump to pump the water into one big water reservoir. Renewable energy generate power from sunlight, from sun, and it has a direct benefit of affordable water supply. Literature review from other system, this solar pump in other countries shows that it could operate for 10 years, like in Mexico, in 15 years in a case in USA. So it is a reliable and mature technology. Compared to other system, solar pump has advantage in environmental side, not rely on grid electricity and fuel supply. In comparison to diesel pump, for example, it is diesel pump has high fuel cost, and also it emit carbon emission. And for grid connected electricity pump, it is highly dependent on grid connection. So where the remote rural area doesn't have this grid connected system, then this pump cannot be operated. So solar pump is a very interesting option for remote rural area in Indonesia. The number of solar pump projects in Indonesia is unclear. However, it is estimated that there are 189 projects across Indonesia during 2005 until 2018. In this map, we can see, so this is the bivariate map of electrification to drinking water ratio. So in this map, you can see that solar pump is built in regions with low electricity and water access, such as this region in East Nusa Tenggara, as well as regions that have good access of both electricity and drinking water, such as Java Island. Solar pump has become an interesting alternative in many villages across region in Indonesia. In this graph, you can see that the number of project continues, but the project evaluation is lacking. Empirical studies and scientific evidence on project evaluation is very important to continue the program delivery and policy making in longer term. And so in this research, I'm focusing on this evaluation aspect. As I've explained before, this is my grand research framework. So the huge title is Assessment on Sustainable Management of Solar Water Pumping System in Rural Communities in Indonesia. And today I'll present about this part and evaluation of post-construction project operational and management of solar pump. I use an approach, data collection approach, or by semi-structured interview to meet the management team of solar pump. And on the other part of my research, I interview the beneficiaries and also local government and the implementing organization. In this presentation, the objective is to assess project constructions, operational, and management from the point of view of the management team. Okay, move forward to the literature review and methods. A solar pump project was implemented through stakeholder collaboration. So solar pump is implemented by this implementing organization, such as international donors, government agencies, universities, and non-profit organization. And local community participate in the project during project development, and they receive this capacity development such as training during the development process. And after the construction finish, there is a group of a local community called community-based organization, or CBO, who's got the responsibility to handle the project after the construction finish. So typically the implementing organization do a transfer of a responsibility to them to manage the system. Such approach is very common in community-based management project, and it is a mainstream model to give control and strategic decision to the communities. And next, solar pump was implemented through this collaboration of communities, and also this is like a trainings during the capacity development process in the development and construction of the project. Funding was commonly provided by the implementing organization through grant or CSR funds, and after the implementation, solar pump is operated by local communities. So implementing organization like withdraw their involvement during the operational and during the deployment process. Many studies in solar pump literature has mentioned about community participation during development, but there is not yet strong evidence regarding post-construction assessments, its challenges and issues. And we need to carry out the evaluation process to really understand to what extent this is the desirable impact can be achieved from this project. The study area of this research in Gunung Kidul district. So this is a Java island in Indonesia, and this is Gunung Kidul district. And 94% of this Gunung Kidul district comprised of rural region. It has hilly topography and approximately 0 until 800 meters above mean sea level. The majority of respondents in this research had primary education. They work as farmer and from lower income family with the average monthly family income around 50 USD. And according to the data from planning agency, almost half of the population in the region was not covered by water utility. One of important characteristic of Gunung Kidul district is karstland form. Karst is formed by dissolution of limestone or carbonate rocks, and it has a high solubility, result in sinkhole caves and extensive underground aquifers like this picture. Water is sourced from caves like this, deep wells and spring like this one. And because of this karstland form, water exploration and centralized water distribution are considered expensive. The reason why we choose Gunung Kidul district as a study area is first because it has prolonged issues in water infrastructure. the karst landform cause this very extreme condition during the rainy season and dry season. So surface water is often situated off-grid and far from settlement. And to explore water source like deep water source, it's very deep, like 100 meters below the surface. And the respondent common method to get water are to buy from water truck, like this one. This is sold by private sellers, which considered expensive. And or they take water directly from so from river by walk or motorcycle with the distance for about 1 kilos, or use rainwater collection. And second reason is because solar pump has been replicated in many villages in this Gunung Kidul district. 9 solar pump project was built in this region, and the water used mainly for domestic consumption. Some of the project has accessible secondary sources, which are very crucial as a starting point for this investigation. So that's the third reason. So in this research, I visited 9 solar pump projects from Klumpit, Ploso, Mengkoran, Gabuk, Sureng, Banyumeneng 1, Banyumeneng 2, Pendowo, and Karang. So this is the name of village in this Gunung Kidul district. This project was built on different year and also by different implementing organization. The study includes point of view from the communities, and the reason for this approach is because first, impact evaluation focus on whether a development intervention had an effect on the lives of people. And second, there were various stakeholders contribute to the development. So ideally, there should be a mutual accountability to promote system change. And the last reason is because previous study had yet to explore the perception of solar pump beneficiaries. The method of data collection was face-to-face interview and questionnaire survey, and several surveyors were employed during this field work. I'm going to explain about the research method. So respondent on this research is 9 people of community-based organization or CBO, 1 person from each 9 solar pump project with face-to-face semi-structured interview. And the data were analyzed through descriptive statistics and co-occurrence analysis or qualitative content analysis. The step of co-occurrence analysis are first conduct semi-structured interview and did the recording. So the interview were recorded, and the second step is to like data preparation, including transcribing the interview, and next labeling. Do a labeling of those transcript of interview, find ideas within the host, categorize the codes into codes, and aggregate them into an analytical framework. And the last step is to construct the narrative, identify connection between categories, triangulate with other documents, and discuss in the context of solar pump. The list of questions are in this scope: development process, operational and maintenance, system malfunction, support from external stakeholders, and overall impression of the project. The tools that I use is the software called Atlas TI, and from this co-occurrence analysis is resulted in will result a C coefficient, which indicate the strength of relation between 2 codes from 0 to 1, where 1 means the codes co-occurring wherever they are used. Next, result and discussion. And this is the overview of 9 projects. So all projects were implemented through the involvement of external institutions and donors, which are international donors, national agency, university, and non-profit organization. So local government never initiate any solar pump. In average, the lifetime of solar pump was 4 years. So there's a like this one, a few short lifetime of solar pump.
You have
Which-
5 minutes.
Okay, and then next, this is the example of solar pump system. The project has like this solar PV installation, water source, and main water reservoir. And was not a direct home network, so the communal reservoir was used by 5 to 7 households that alternate their access to water, like this diagram. And user fee was very affordable, around less than $1 per meter cubics. And the system has no battery as well, so it will not work during after the at night. Yeah. And here's the overview of solar pump. The majority of project is not functioning. Well, only one is partially functioning. Most of them receive, most of the community-based organization or CBO receive training in operation and maintenance. And the most common training involved is wiping the solar panels and checking the pipes. 89% of the project do not have direct access to the spare parts. And then all the cases reported that the reserve fund was insufficient to cover the repair and replacement of components. And then we conduct the co-occurrence analysis from the transcript interview to obtain relationship between codes. And we ask several points from development process, like as explained before, and until the overall impression of the project. And we found 11 topics or codes from the insufficient training, cost region challenge, minimum operational and maintenance skill, difficult to access spare part, lack of reserve fund, need for support to repair malfunction, lack of post-construction support, gap of the expectation, preference on electric utility, damage of electrical component, and theft. From the analysis of this co-occurrence analysis, we got the coefficient between the codes. The coefficient value is between 0 to 1, and the closer to 1 means the codes co-occur wherever they are used. From the minimum to maximum number of coefficient, we classify it in 3 intervals: weak, intermediate, and strong relationship. The most closely related code are need of support to maintain or to repair malfunction and damage of electrical components, gap on the expectation and preference on the electric utility, need of support to repair malfunction with insufficient training, and lack of reserve fund and damage of electrical components. The last part on conclusion. The first conclusion is training during construction did not guarantee project longevity. Moreover, in a complex system such as solar pump. So a future solar pump should conduct more effort on increasing the CBO capacity to match the solar pump advanced technology. For severe damage, if an urgent support is needed, it can be provided without compromising the autonomy of CBO, as long as the CBO still hold the control over the system. And second conclusion is as an initiator, the implementing organization have been focused on replicating solar pump installation rather than building a network with local government and bridging policy change. So in the future, the project should not only focus on replication. Then future solar pump at rural settings should reconsider the approach of community-based management and the trade-off between the benefit of renewable energy and the urgency of post-construction support. This is the publication for further reading, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Amani. Well, we have implemented a lot of projects regarding water preservation and water supply, but unfortunately, as you pointed out, the post-construction assessment is really needed, and we have to watch how the projects has kept and going on. And okay, we discussed the gas and oil, and then sustainable development, and then, well, water things. And now we are going to look at the land. Yeah. The fourth presenter is Professor Chen Yichun from Chinese Culture University of Taiwan. And the title of the presentation is Examining Urban Scale Energy Governance Through Data Analysis, Impact of Occupant Behavior from Taiwan Energy Policy. Please, Professor Chen.
Hi, everyone. I am very honored to join the Border and the Environmental 2023. I share my experience to predict the urban scale energy consumption. And this project during the 3 years in Taiwan. I introduced the energy consumption connect the competent behavior from the Taiwan energy policies. So this slide shows my outline. My outline divided 4 parts. First, I introduced net zero carbon emission policy in Taiwan, and the next, I introduce how chosen the urban scale in this study. And third, I talk about the questionnaire survey for the occupants' behavior on the energy consumption. Next, I talk about the energy consumption prediction on the lifestyle transition in the Taiwan. So in 2021, Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen announced the net zero carbon emission policies and established the net zero pathway task force. So we established the net zero pathway task force to solid and scientific foundation in the 2021. This year, we modified the act to the Climate Change Response Act, and to key element incorporate the 2050 net zero emission target into the legal framework. So we can see the slide show the Taiwan pathway to the net zero emission by the 2050. By the 5 years stage, we can see the slide. The 2 phases and to the reduce the GHG emissions for the 2% and the 10% by the 2020 and the 2025. The third phase toward the reducing the GHG emissions in the 2030 for the 20% the target, but in 27 year we modify the reduction the target to the 50% to the 2013. So get the net zero carbon emissions target to the by the 2015. So major the strategies including the 4th strategy and as well as 2 foundations. 4th strategy including the energy transitions, industrial transitions, lifestyle transitions, and social transitions in Taiwan. Energy transitions is plays a significant process on the renewable energy initiative, such as the million rooftop PVs and the southern wind turbine programs. industrial transitions focus on the manufacturing, commercial, and building the energy efficient practice. Lifestyle transitions focus on the people thinking the transitions, such as food, clothing, housing, and transportation transitions. Social transitions focus on the just transformation and civic engagement. So we can see the slide show this study focused on the industrial transitions and the lifestyle transitions. So we can see the importance of the behavioral changes for the 2015 net zero. According the IEA report indicate 50 emissions reduction require the deployment of the low carbon technology, such as the solar water heater and electric vehicles, but the remaining 8% reduction in the emissions concern the behavioral changes to reduce the energy demand. So in this study, I chosen the urban scale. As energy consumption on the demand side in the city is very important. And the engine-based model can explore the energy consumption. So I use the engine-based model to predict the energy consumption in the Taipei city by the 2013. Urban pattern, we can see the right-hand side of the picture, figure out the urban pattern, about the social pattern, economic pattern, and building the pattern is a very heterogeneity. Therefore, we further use the available small-scale data to assess the spatial heterogeneity of each layer on the demand side. So we chosen the Taipei City, the database, because of the Taipei City have a lot of the open data to assess the heterogeneity of the GIS. We can use a number of the enterprise income tax and the population of the young people and the elderly people left the area. We can see the slide show. We use the K-means method to cluster the different cluster for the energy consumptions. The cluster 1 and the cluster 4 live in the sub area. These people is elderly the people live in the sub area in Taipei. So cluster 2 and the cluster 3 is live in the downtown Taipei and live in the commercial land use. So we use the product box to train the prediction, the overlap, the mapping. Maybe the overlap mapping is the cluster 1 and the cluster 4. We can see the circle indicate the cluster 1 and the cluster 4 overlapping for the income tax. So the first cluster 1 transform the cluster 4 in the Taipei City. For the 41, we can see the right-hand side the table show the highest the overlapping the transform the probability from the 41% to the 49% is the highest transform the probability from the cluster 1 to the cluster 4. But we can see the slide original the box plot. indicate the cluster 1 and the cluster 2 and 3 is the overlapping decrease over time. So the cluster 1 always transform the cluster 4. So we remember this, the slide show the insights. We use the decision tree indicate the occupant, the behavior, the rule. The cluster 1 live in the residential building. The cluster 1 are the live in the elderly development area and low density population in the Taipei city. 16 of the future have a lower energy consumption. It's about the 360 kilowatt per hour. This cluster is average is 500 kilowatt per hour. So we inside this cluster original box index is always the lower energy consumption. So we can see the 1B-6 is the main rule. This main rule for this cluster owning the more than the 5 years for the cooker appliance and using time for the air condition more than the 6 hours per day. So this is the main rule for the cluster 1. And we further understood the cluster for the occupants' behavior for in the residential buildings. This decision tree figure out the main rule is 4B-3. We can see the cluster for the main rule is same with cluster 1. Owning the cooker appliance more than the 5 years and using time for the air condition more than 6 hours per day. So, but we can see the cluster 4 have a higher energy consumption than the cluster 1, because this figure shows the 500 kilowatt per hour. Cluster 1 is 300 kilowatt per hour. Next one, the figure shows the cluster 1 and 4 live in the commercial buildings. Decision tree indicate this main rule is 14-1 rule. In the Taiwan, commercial building have no air condition replacement plant, but the cluster 1 and the cluster 4 always live in the residential than commercial building. But in Taiwan, we have a mixture the land use landscape. So we further understood the cluster 1 and the 4 in the commercial building behavior. So we can see the cluster 1 and the 4 in the commercial building is have higher energy consumption than previous slide, more than the 500 kilowatt per hour. And the slide shows the cluster 2 and 3 in the residential buildings. The occupant of the cluster 2 and 3 live in the mixture commercial land use, and 70 of the future having a lower energy consumption, about the 600 kilowatt. this group have the average the energy consumption about 700 the kilowatt per hour, the highest than the overall the group. So we can see the decision trees indicate the origin box indicate the lowest the consumption. So according to the questionnaire survey, we know the cluster 2 and the 3 transform on the lifestyle, so meet the lower energy consumptions. Maybe the elderly people live here and have the higher the knowledge for the saving energies, the knowledge. So we can see the cluster 2 and the 3 transform the lifestyle to saving the energy consumptions. And the slide show the cluster 2 and the 3 in commercial buildings. Commercial buildings have the highest the energy consumption because of the air condition is a very highest for the energy supply. So 67% of the future have a higher energy consumption, about 900 kilowatt per hour for this cluster. The main rule is the blue one, indicate the 2 and 3D-2 have no air condition replacement plant, and feel the indoor air quality is very poor. So this group have the highest the energy consumptions, and then we know the occupant behavior changes based on the energy policy in Taiwan. So I designed the research focus on the 2025 and 2013. This we can see the slide show the combined questionnaire survey in the commercial building and the residential building. This slide show the 2013 indicate 100% LED replacement plant and air condition system replacement in the commercial building. And on the other hand, in the residential buildings, Taiwan have a lot of the green building plant in the 2013. So I combined this questionnaire and energy policy into my model. My model choose the engine-based model 3 layers. From the layers 1 to layers 2 is use geographic weighting regressions. This model is solve the heterogeneity for the spatial analysis, and questionnaire survey into the layer 2 to layer 3 for the decision trees. Yes, okay. Next one, we input my model, go to the gamma platform. The gamma platform have a visualization tool, and I can set the parameter for the environmental condition of the energy policy. We can see the this slide show the residential buildings for the environmental conditions to meet PM 2.5 standard of the outdoor 12 mg per kilometers, and the single room is a small size in the 2013. The slide show the the distribution of the level 2 level green colors is degrees. Okay, so but the prediction of the map in the 2013 in the Taipei is more than in the 2019. Next one, we modify the air condition replacement to the 13% in the Taipei city. The air condition replacement is very effective for the then the previous slide, because of we can see the light green the pie chart is increase than the previous slide. So we concern the air condition replacement is useful for the building for the residential buildings, the project. Next one, we can modify the business typology to the one single room per house, and the LED replacement to 100 trend. And this is not useful for the in the Taipei City commercial buildings. Okay. Next one, we modify the environmental conditions and the air condition replacement to the commercial projects. This project is useful for the commercial buildings, because we can see the light green. The pie chart is increase the distribution for the in the 2013 than 2019. Okay, we can see this slide show the higher the energy consumption of the rising in the Taipei City in both the commercial and the residential sector. So this one, the red circle indicates the Xinyi and the Wanhua and the Zhongzheng district is increased in the 2013. So we concern the net zero policy is not useful for the lifestyle transitions for the Taipei City, because cluster 4 is the domestic the group. The cluster 4 have a higher the energy consumption in the here, the red circle, but the blue circle indicate the Da'an Wenshan is a very high density the commercial building in the here. But my model maybe the more commercial questionnaire survey into this for modify the accuracy, because the commercial building have a variable inheritability in the here. So in the conclusion, changing capacity behavior regarding the zero carbon policy in Taiwan is the quite challenges, particularly in the urban scale energy hotspot are determined by the resident basic conditions. So according to the simulation result, the carbon reduction impact of the urban area is limited by the lifestyle and the social transitions from the list result. It is recommended to promote urban carbon neutralize through the strategy like the proactive building upgrade, not the lifestyle transitions. Electrical price adjustment is very important in Taiwan, and the differentiation of the decentralized renewable energy system is very important. So this is my last slide. Thank you for listening. My address is coachy@gmail.com. Can contact with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ji. Maybe the reason why Taiwanese people don't replace their equipment is quite simple. They are so economical and thrifty. Okay, so before giving the mic to the last presenter, I need your favor. Well, owing to the electric supply of today, we need some break time to realign the system. So we will begin in 5 minutes. We'll have a 5 minutes break and we'll get back by 3:45. I'm sorry about this, and we'll have a 5 minutes break. Thank you. And keep connected, my colleagues in overseas. Thank you.